Welcome to the Suncoast In-Depth podcast. I'm Brett Watson, and I'm here again with Dr. Troy Doucet and Ricardo Aviles, and we're talking about Chapter 9 in The Universal Christ by Richard Rohr. So this chapter, just to sum it up, re-emphasizes the incarnation, and he couches it as the supreme contribution of Christianity. And he also does so. He does this because he wants to encourage the reader to go through what he calls this radical transpositioning of God by understanding the incarnation. So when most of us think about our faith, we picture it as a journey of ascent, right? We're trying to get better. We're trying to get more like God. We're trying to get closer to God and so on, right? So he thinks that needs to be turned upside down so that we see it more as a descent. Descent into what? A descent into reality, you could say, but even into our woundedness. That nothing can change. There is no real transformation if it's all about this notion of ascending to something, instead of the emerging of God in us, emerging from us. Mm-hmm. So that's the emphasis there. And he kind of asks some interesting questions, like how much of heaven do you feel like you experience in your day-to-day? How would you guys answer that?
Oh man,
go ahead, Troy.
It depends on the day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It would depend on the day how I would equate that to what my concept of heaven would be. Usually even being at the beach, you'd say, "Oh, this is heaven. This is paradise." But rarely do I think of my commute as being heavenly. So.
But you acknowledge that it could be.
It could be,
in some sense, right?
It depending on the frame of mind or the contemplative nature that I'm experiencing in that moment, and what good things I feel I could allow in that moment. When traffic's delayed or someone cuts me off, like.
So do you think that if you work at you contemplate, this contemplation's a big thing that in all of his books, really, that it's the central practice that we should be employing, right? Do you think that if you do some of the seemingly silly exercises that he brings up, like contemplating the value of, a pebble, and he's not the only one that says this. I mean, you can pretty much just talk to mystics across the spectrum of religions, right?
Yep.
And they will encourage things like this, right? Do you think that then can lead to your worship? We're in a series now, at Suncoast, focused on worship and what it is. And do you think that can lead to greater worship when the more obvious God moments come up in your life? Like, are they enhanced because you took time to focus on the splatter bug on your windshield and your commute? Or
It's funny, man. I used to, when I was a kid, I'd cut grass to make money because I had my mom and dad's home. Then my aunt, we called her Tante Buell, and she lived right next to us. And then next to her was my grandma, my stepdad's mom. And I'd cut all 3 yards in a single day. And I used to remember thinking, I need to take a break, not for me, but I want to give the lawnmower a break. Like the lawnmower deserves a break. Not because it was overheating. I just felt bad. Like, this damn thing is working really hard. I'm just sitting on it. It was a riding lawnmower,
Yeah.
And I used to take into consideration its feelings even as a young kid, man.
Yeah.
And looking around going, man, those bolts have constant pressure in holding this building together.
I did this too.
You know what I'm saying?
I did, yeah.
And I was like, sucks to be a bolt. but the bolt is bolting, right?
Mhm.
It's doing what it was purposed to do. And I think when you get that sort of contemplative notion, like, we say, like, the trees or the rivers, and we appropriate things onto it to give it essential, like, usefulness, utility for humanity. Like, that's how things have value for us.
Right.
Is if they serve us in a particular way. And it's as though when things don't serve us in a particular way, we find very little value in the pebble. We find very little value in the grain of sand or whatever. But when we stop and we contemplate that, when we allow the things, the word is when we let the things. The German people have a word, it's called Gelassenheit. When we let things be like what they're supposed to be, then I come to value it as it is, as opposed to what I need it to be. And I think we do that with God, right? Like God becomes this utility. Like God becomes valuable insofar as he serves a purpose for the human plight. So to find goodness, in the mundanity of existence, like, it's hard, because what the hell does the traffic serve me other than it's a disservice to me because I can't get to work on time or whatever the case. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does.
Well,
Yeah.
it takes some discipline, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Contemplation is a disciplined act.
But for me, and I don't want to, like, monopolize the time. For me, contemplation is an awakening act. It awakens my soul, myself, whatever you want to call it, to the true reality. Like, don't you know the things that make you cry today, you're gonna laugh at 5 years from now? Like, I had a conversation with Larry this morning, and he just was checking in on me, man, because I'm going through some crap in my life right now. It's like this huge freaking financial strain on my life, trying to get custody of my son and stuff. And he just walked in and he goes, I just want to remind you, in 5 years, you're going to look back at this and you're going to laugh. You're going to laugh and you're going to get over this hump. And when you stop and contemplate, and it's not just about contemplation, it's what am I contemplating? Am I contemplating the misery I'm in now? Or am I contemplating the hopefulness that lies before? And dude, I got to remind myself of that. Like, it's temporary.
Yeah.
This is temporary. I'm going to get through this because God has not abandoned me, and I got to make damn sure I don't abandon him in this moment, right? And that's the argument I think we need to be making, is that when tough times happen, when it doesn't feel like heaven is here, it's not that God has abandoned us or absconded to otherness. I have to make sure that I'm not the one doing the abandonment, right? So that's...
So what he's emphasizing here is the need to look at your difficult situation.
Yeah.
The need to descend into that.
Yes.
But I hear you. That there also has to be, in order to do that and survive it, right? It is important to contemplate the hope beyond it.
Yeah.
At the same time. So it's really an exercise in both. But the emphasis in this chapter is on the descent into woundedness, because, I mean, we all know people that just live in kind of this perpetual state of denial about reality, right?
Sure.
Positive in lieu of reality, you know. And that's not the kind of positive that really produces a changed person, an improved person, we should say, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, your situation, the difficulties you're experiencing, you almost can't help but contemplate them. But how much does it help to know that do you think about this, that, wow, there's some real soul work that takes place in times like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a buddy of mine about a year ago went through a terrible divorce. And, it was obviously tough, but he had the mindset of just like being grateful for the suffering because he knew it was going in the long run was going to benefit him. And that is a problem. Like we get asked that question all the time. Like, why is there suffering? Why do we have to go through these dark times? If you have that mindset of like understanding, I know I have hope in the future that not only will I get out of this, because the hope's only the only thing that gets you through it, right? Because you're not promised that you will, but you have hope that you'll get out of it, and in the long run, you'll be better, you'll be stronger, and you'll be more resilient. I was listening to a couple of podcasters this morning, and these guys are relatively famous, not like superstars, but they're relatively famous, and they were just kind of talking about this idea that, you know, so many people are watching them under a microscope, and any time that they fail or do something, don't live up to their full potential, people are all over them. And like, I can't believe you would do this. You're such a bad person. And they're like, we're not allowed to like have human moments. We're not allowed to make wrong decisions, and because then we get crucified for it. He's like, we're normal humans just like everyone else. And so the reflection of understanding, like I've had moments where I've fallen short. I've had moments that I've failed. And one of the things we should be doing in that is understanding, like, I've had this human moment and I've failed. So when somebody else has those human moments and fails, be more compassionate to those people. Don't judge them for their failings. So I think what suffering allows us to do is be more compassionate to people going through stuff, as opposed to, at least that's the soul work we should be doing in those moments. Like, I know what you're going through. I've had a similar experience, and I'm here for you. Just, I want to let you know this is not going to last forever, and I'm hurting with you because I know what that pain feels like. That should be the response.
Yeah.
And I think the important thing of like Roar's thought is to not deny the depth of that mistake, to not, you know, because there are people in the world, even when they make a mistake, they have the blame game. They make excuses for it because that tends to lessen the pain of their mistake. Like, I think part of the humanness and the incarnation is to fully embrace that, like to dive into the depth of my own mistake.
Yes.
But also to embrace the pain. Like most people, this is why, you know, people will drink or take narcotics, right? Is to numb the pain of what they're going through. And you and I had the conversation yesterday. Like, I love whiskey, dude, and it's not to get hammered. I just enjoy whiskey. Like, I'm a connoisseur of it. But I made the commitment, like, I'm not going to touch alcohol during the week, only maybe on, you know, Friday or Saturday, because of what I'm walking through now. I want to fully embrace the struggle here and not numb it, because there is some soul work to be done. But you have to allow yourself to dive to that depth. And while hope is a great, like, sort of antidote to know, like, this is only temporary, even that can become a numbing, you know, it's the whole idea of you're so, so you're heavenly minded, you're no earthly good. Well, that earthly goodness is also allowing the pain to embrace it and using that pain as a type of purposeful fuel. Like, dude, I work out, and dude, I had the most intense workouts the last 2 days and pushed myself beyond my limits, what I thought was possible. And I don't think I could have done it if I wouldn't be going through what I'm going through now. And so there is a utility to pain to grow in our Christ likeness. But like Roar says, it's not an ascent to some goodness. It often has to be a descent into madness, into the chaos. So
into the woundedness, as he puts it. That's right.
Yeah, but I like the other end of the contemplation too, as well as, like, you know, you could, when you're sitting in your car and you're sitting in traffic and you're like just frustrated, you know, taking those steps of just gratitude, the gratitude mindset of like, I'm thankful I have a car. I'm thankful I have gas in my tank, and if I need more, I have the money to do so. and I'm thankful I'm driving to a job.
Yeah.
You know, like all of those things.
So many things.
There's so many things that we have to be thankful for, because we can. It's very easy to focus on the negative for sure. And I'm speaking to myself because I hate traffic. It's like one of the things that just gets me so upset.
Yeah.
And it really is important. You know, you and I talked about this off camera, and we were going to talk about it on camera at some point, but maybe this is a good place to talk about it. He points out in, I don't know if it's in this book. I think it is actually. I know he's pointed it out in other books, but he has a relationship with a neuroscientist. And in their research, they developed a study that looked at brain imaging as positive inputs coming in, through your senses versus negative input. And what they observed was the negative input clinging like Velcro in the mind, and the positive input coming in and sliding right back out like he says, like cheese on a hot Teflon pan. Mm-hmm. It just slides right off. And the only way to counter that, the scientist told him, was for you to be intentional about holding on to it. Mm-hmm. That's the definition of contemplation, right? So those things are important. Mm-hmm. When we've all gone through it, we all know people that tend to just cling to the Velcro side of that, and they look at their situation in the morning on their way to work or whatever, and they're just like, oh, damn it, it's freaking traffic, It does. It's an effort to, I live in a society that has infrastructure that gets me to work, mm-hmm. that gets me home, and
it is hard. It is hard though, because there are people that have been delivered shit hands in life.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, Laura's got a client that, she's the most negative person that I've ever heard. Obviously, I don't know her name. I don't know who she is. But Laura will tell me some of the things that she says, and she is the most negative person that Laura's ever had as a client. Mm-hmm. But Laura also has the understanding of her background, and like she was dealt a shit hand in life.
Yeah.
She had a husband that beat her and gambled away all their money and left her with nothing, and she just, every step of the way in life has just been, it's been pretty rough. Man. So it's just like, when you get that backstory, and she tries to work with her on like looking at the bright side of things, looking at the positive side of things, but that has to be intentional on your own. And then, the exact opposite. I've seen people that have had every reason to be mad at God, the world, and life. And they're some of the happiest people I've met.
Right.
And I don't think that's by accident.
Yeah.
I think it's contemplation, whether they know they're doing it or not.
Right.
Like
some people don't know they're doing it.
No.
It takes practice, man. It's part of that Aristotelian idea is we become that which we do over and over again. Like I believe some people are born, with a general type of like courage, whatever. But you become courageous by doing courageous things. You become a coward by doing cowardly things over and over again. Yeah. And I see this, man. I see it in my son. Like, 3 years ago, he was very reluctant to take risk. Like, he was absolutely risk averse in anything, like ordering his food at McDonald's.
Yes. Yeah.
He didn't want to do it. He was had so much anxiety. He pulled all of his eyebrows out. So we have pictures, from that year 2020, of him with no eyebrows on, because he was so anxious. And I just kept working with him, just kept saying, in order to be this, you have to do this. It's going to do this. And now, man, he'll tell you what he wants. I want my cheeseburger, no onions, extra cheese, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He'll order what he wants. He'll look you in the eye. And I'm very proud of him. So I think there are ways that we can begin to instill that sort of positive outlook. Yeah. But it takes practice. Contemplation takes practice. Prayer takes practice. Mm-hmm. And tell me any great football player, basketball player, sports star who we idolize who didn't practice.
Yes.
In spite of what Allen Iverson said, practice, man. It's still an important step. You know?
The measurable difference between someone who's at the top of any field, any playing of an instrument, or sports, the difference is like 10,000 hours of doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing about contemplation, this should be an encouragement, is you have an opportunity to contemplate the beauty, the good, the every moment.
Yeah.
Every moment with anything. It sounds weird, to a lot of people, but it really does make a difference. So like when Larry preaches on Sunday morning and he says something that seems so simple, like, how about breathe in, breathe out, and smile? That practice has profound impact on the way you perceive reality.
Yeah.
Literally. I mean, there are studies on this. You
100%.
force yourself to smile in your worst circumstances. It does something. It flips a switch
That's right.
in your brain or something. So, but
That's
like
right.
you said, you got to keep doing it.
That's right. We're so accomplishment driven, which I get.
That's part of
you think of it like these athletes who train for the Olympics, whatever, like these runners. Like we're talking milliseconds of time difference between first and even last place, and like seconds. But yet the accomplishment is like, here's the finish line, greatest guy in the world, never heard of you. Like that much. That whole Jerry Seinfeld bit he did. It's and we can't. I don't think God operates like that. I don't think God goes, oh, you did what I asked. Oh, you almost had it. You going to hell. Like that's not how it works.
Yeah. And I guess you'd have to admit that. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you have to have something like that in front of you. Like we were talking about the utility of things. Like if I'm going to contemplate, a bug on my windshield, it has no real utility for me. Well, it kind of does, because I know that I'm looking at the intricacies of that bug and thinking about its conscious existence, and I'm just in awe of the diversity of the divine reality. So that does something for me, right?
Right.
But the way he closes out this chapter made me think of this as you were giving examples there. He said, once you know that the miracle of the Word made flesh has become the very nature of the universe, you cannot help but be both happy and holy. And that's what I want to leave people with. Like the practice of doing these little things, breathe in, breathe out, smile, be intentional about them. The intentional practice of looking at the good things in your difficult circumstances, all the things that we've talked about here, that even in the smallest things really does lead to an increased joy, I would call it.
Yeah,
happiness.
I was going to say joy is a great
foundational joy, and it builds and builds and builds.
Yeah,
I just wish. Don't you wish you could just like give that to people, like boom? Besides words, like it's in them,
right?
Because it really does make a difference.
But like you said,
I want more of it.
The only way you get to those points, like the only way you get more courageous, is by doing courageous things. That's the only way to become more joyful and have more joy in your life is to identify and be intentional about being thankful and having gratitude towards those little things. Because we can all be super happy when we get a promotion at work, or we get a bonus, or we go on a great vacation. Like it's easy to be happy in those moments, but finding happiness and like reasons to be grateful in the day-to-day and the mundane and our drive to work, it can be like when you were talking about the pebble thing, I was thinking to myself, like, okay, that little pebble, what kind of journey did that little pebble go on? Right. Like, was it a big, massive rock a million years ago, in another part of the world, and all of a sudden, it's made its journey to at my feet.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a cool thing to like think about, you know, but we don't stop and think about those things.
Right.
And so that's a great reminder. I want to read this chapter.
Often wonder what happened to those pair of Jordans I had in 10th grade. You know, where are they now?
Yeah.
Like, wonder if they're covered.
Maybe they're lonely in a dump somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, this was fun. It's a great topic. And
it's a great reminder.
And a great reminder, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that nothing really produces change without descending into the reality of pain, difficulty, dissatisfaction, whatever.
Yeah.
And then focusing on the beautiful things, the good things, and the contrast that's developed there, and the joy that can be built over time in that process. So thanks, guys.
Yep.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate your stories. Appreciate you.